All right, let's get into your emails, the email bag, so to speak. It's really more of a folder, but, I think the imagery of the mail bag is still maybe relevant in modern society in 2021. Info@davidpakman.com is the place to email. Let's see what's on some people's minds. First, many responses to my response to Nicki Minaj's tweet about her cousin's friend's testicle swelling. You guys remember this story? Phil wrote to me and said, technical response to swollen apple bags. Hey, David, just watched your episode and thought you might want to read through this. Yes, of course it can occur with STIs, but it can also occur via COVID itself, apparently, or mumps. I'm vaccinated and had a breakthrough case along with my girlfriend a couple weeks ago and was panicking when I noticed a bit of inflammation on myself. After extensive Googling, because I currently don't have health insurance through my employer, I live in Texas, big surprise, right? I came across a few articles like this. Just wanted to send it your way since it seems more likely to me that Nicki Minaj's cousin's brother's dog sitter twice removed probably just got exposed to COVID after getting the vaccine, than getting it from the vaccine or an STI, even although that's obviously statistically more likely than getting it from the vaccine. Yeah, it's the Ministry of Health from Trinidad and Tobago said we found no reporting at all about this case of the swollen testicles from the vaccine. And I think if it is even at all real, which we don't know, but if it's a real story, if Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's testicles really did swell, it would almost certainly be from something else. Could be COVID itself, could be orchitis from gonorrhea, chlamydia, something else. Also an email about Tucker Carlson's interest in the swollen testicles of Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend. JFK wrote in and said, Tucker Carlson's rant over someone else's balls has a different problem. How many men have experienced erection issues under stress? Every man has at some point. The guy's fiance calls off the wedding because he's dysfunctional. Better that he found out now she didn't really love him. Let's take this to the bizarre far-right Bible-thumping side. Why is she having sex before marriage? There is far more evidence that SARS-CoV-2 can and does cause capillary dysfunction in male testicles. Yeah, that's another story that was brought to light accurately, which is COVID itself seems to carry a risk of sexual dysfunction. But I keep going back that it is weird that because of a supposed vaccine reaction, Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's fiance called off the wedding. It's like, well, if it's just a medical issue reacting to the vaccine, wouldn't you just get married anyway? Or it's all very, very strange. Next email is from Brendan. Brendan writes in about the Novavax vaccine. Says, hey, David, I believe we'll see vaccination rates go up in this country about 20% if the Novavax vaccine ends up becoming available in the U.S. Many COVID vaccine hesitant people who are currently unvaccinated are holding out for the Novavax as its subunit protein technology makes it closer to traditional influenza vaccines. It also has greater than 90% efficacy from trials and has been touted as likely the best vaccine yet, even by publications like The Atlantic. Have you read up on it? I have, but not recently enough to know whether these claims are still accurate. Brendan says, anyway, I think this is a vax issue worth discussing. I am open to and interested in any efficacious and safe vaccine being put forward with the goal of it working for someone who's not yet been vaccinated. I hesitate to put too much stock in any people still not vaccinated claiming I'll get vaccinated as soon as X, because for the most part, there's been a lot of BS. Look at all the people who said I'd get vaccinated as soon as the vaccine is FDA approved. The numbers have barely trickled up since the Pfizer vaccine was FDA approved weeks ago. Many of them have moved on to something else, including saying the approval is untrustworthy because it was political or whatever the case may be. So I am really skeptical about any one thing having that much of an impact, except the aviation thing. I do think that while it won't be the 41% of anti-vax people who claimed they would get vaccinated if you need one to fly, I don't think 41% will actually go and do it. I do have every belief that if a vaccine was required to fly, a lot of anti-vax people would go and get vaccinated. So Novavax, airline requirement, employee requirement. Let's try everything to try to get those numbers up. Next email is from Randall. Randall wrote in about the January 5th, January 6th pipe bomb surveillance video. These are the pipe bombs placed in D.C. on January 5th, found on January 6th in and around the time that the Trump riots were going on. Randall says, David, I believe that you and your friends are correct about the suspect being a woman. As you watch the suspect, as they sit down on the bench, they place their knees together. How many men do that? Definitely a woman. I actually didn't notice that, and I don't know much about that. I've never really paid attention to placing knees together. When I sit down, yeah, I guess I don't put my knees together, but that's just me. I don't know if this is some kind of gender stereotype, if there's any basis in science. I really have no idea. I've also not heard anything additional about the identity of the pipe bomb suspect. And it is so difficult for me to believe that nobody knows a thing about it. It's just really, really difficult to imagine that that's the case. Hopefully we will know something soon. And yeah, I got a lot of emails after the segment last week from people saying, I agree with you, David. I do think that the suspect is a woman. That may have been because I mentioned it. I really don't know. I have no idea. But if you know anything, please, please, please contact the FBI. Very, very important stuff. Next email is from Paul. Paul writes to me the only legitimate anti-vax argument. So I thought this should be good. Let's see what Paul says. Dear David, while most of the arguments I've heard from the anti-vaxxers are based on conspiracy theories or simply scientifically inaccurate, there is one legitimate reason for vaccine hesitancy that I can't argue against. We don't know the long-term effects of these vaccines. We don't know that 5 to 10 years from now, vaccinated individuals won't be dropping dead of heart attacks. What do you say to people who have these fears, and what makes you so confident you won't develop long-term side effects? Cheers, Paul. This is not a new argument, okay? This is an indefeasible argument because you can always argue, however long a vaccine's been out, we don't yet know that some kind of side effect doesn't start right after that. The polio vaccine, it's been out 70 years. How do we know that on year 71, the polio vaccine doesn't cause some kind of problem? The problem with this argument is it's indefeasible. You can't defeat this argument because you could always say, well, the vaccine's been out 11 years. The problems might start after 12 years. So my feeling on this is, based on speaking to doctors and virologists and epidemiologists about how the vaccine works and how the substance of the vaccine clears from your body relatively quickly, I have no reason to believe that there is some magical period of time after which there will be some new problem. In addition to that, with the very narrow exception about GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, which we've talked about and which is now better understood, there aren't examples of what this person is saying either. So it's not about why am I personally so confident I won't have a long-term side effect in 5 years, in 10 years, whatever, from the vaccine. The decades-long research on mRNA technology, and now the century of vaccination, century plus, actually, if you include, smallpox, tells us that that does not seem to be how vaccine works. And so that's why I've made the decision to go and get vaccinated. But this is the type of argument that you can never defeat, because they could always say, listen, the vaccine causes no side effects for 100 years. If lifespans increase, we don't know what that vaccine could do. You can always make that argument. It really gets us nowhere. It's not supported by evidence. Okay. And then Kurt wrote to me. Kurt wrote to me about rules during the pandemic. Kurt says, an old newspaper article from 1918 showing a list of do's and don'ts for preventing the Spanish flu looks painfully familiar. My favorite is this one. Quote, Do not disregard the advice of a specialist just because you do not understand. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of depressing in a sense that we have all these new medical technologies, mRNA, vaccine, we're developing, we have all these new treatments, and we have, ECMO machines and ventilators and all these different things. But to just stop the spread, it's hygiene, it's physical distance, and it's masking. That's basically what it is. This really hasn't changed. And yet still we have so many people who either don't understand it or refuse to do it or think they know better than the experts or believe the experts are part of some conspiracy. There's a lot of stuff. And we interviewed an author who's an historian of the 1918 flu. And he told us about a lot of the same dynamics: science, skeptical people refusing to participate in the guidelines, etc. 100 years ago, 103 years ago at this point in time. Some things never change, seemingly, or at least they take a really long time to change. Send me your emails. Maybe they will be picked and featured on next week's email bag. info@davidpakman.com. We've got a great bonus show coming up for you today. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. Please sign up. It really is a great revenue source for us. It makes us independent of big media and advertisers because it's just you guys. You guys control the show. You fund the show. You can sign up at joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21. We'll see you on the bonus show. If you're not so inclined, then we will talk to you on Monday.